Wellness Rhythm Show. Find your rhythm. Live your wellness.
Y'all, let me tell you something. About 6 months ago, I woke up at 3 a.m., absolutely drenched in sweat, heart racing, convinced I had somehow contracted a tropical disease. Spoiler, I had not. My doctor looked at me, smiled kindly, and said, "Emma, welcome to perimenopause." I was 36 years old. I had no idea it could start this early.
Right, and that reaction, the shock, the confusion, is incredibly common. Here's what I've learned digging into this. Perimenopause can begin anywhere from 8 to 12 years before actual menopause. The average onset is mid to late 30s. Yet a 2019 survey by the Menopause Society found that fewer than 20% of women felt adequately informed about it beforehand.
Which is honestly wild. We're talking about something that affects every woman who lives long enough, and yet the information gap is enormous. So today we're fixing that, at least a little bit.
Exactly. What's actually happening in the body, what the science says genuinely helps, and what's just noise. Let's get into it.
So let's start at the beginning, because I genuinely did not know the difference between perimenopause and menopause. I was using them interchangeably, which turns out is wrong.
Classic mix-up. Menopause is actually a single moment in time, 12 consecutive months without a menstrual period. That's it, everything leading up to that point is perimenopause, and that's where all the action is.
Sometimes for years and years of action, like unwanted, exhausting action.
Precisely. The hormonal turbulence, and it really is turbulence, is driven primarily by fluctuating estrogen and progesterone levels. Dr. Geraldine Pryor at the University of British Columbia has done extensive work showing it's not a straight decline. It's chaotic. Levels spike and crash unpredictably.
That actually explains so much. Because some months I feel completely normal and other months I'm a different human being. My husband thinks I'm unpredictable. I'm like, no, my hormones are unpredictable. There's a difference.
Brilliant point, Emma. And those fluctuations drive a remarkably wide symptom list. Sleep disruption, mood changes, irregular cycles, brain fog, joint pain, changes in libido. The list goes on. The North American Menopause Society tracks over 30 distinct symptoms associated with perimenopause.
30? I only knew about 3: hot flashes, mood swings, and the end of predictable periods. Nobody warned me about the joint pain or the brain fog.
The brain fog piece is particularly underreported. Research published in the journal Menopause found measurable changes in verbal memory and processing speed during perimenopause, linked directly to estrogen fluctuation affecting the hippocampus. It's real neuroscience, not imagination.
Okay, I need everyone listening right now to hear that. If you've been feeling foggy and wondering if you're somehow losing your mind, you are not. There is a biological explanation. Please talk to your doctor.
Right, let's unpack the science a bit more though, because understanding the mechanisms actually helps people take the right steps. Estrogen doesn't just affect reproduction, it's involved in bone density, cardiovascular health, sleep architecture, even gut microbiome regulation. So when it fluctuates wildly, the whole system feels it.
Which is why this isn't just a women's issue in the dismissive sense people sometimes mean. This is whole body physiology. For our listeners in the sandwich generation, managing careers, kids, maybe aging parents simultaneously, this lands right in the middle of an already demanding season of life.
Exactly. So let's talk about what the evidence actually supports, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. And if you're finding this useful, by the way, please do like and subscribe to the Wellness Rhythm Show. It genuinely helps us reach more people who need this kind of grounded information.
Yes, please. Okay, so what actually helps? Because I've seen everything from seed cycling to bizarre supplement stacks online, and I have no idea what's real.
Right, here's what I've learned. The research falls into a few fairly clear categories. First, and this is still the most clinically effective intervention, is hormone therapy. The rebranding from HRT to MHT, menopausal hormone therapy, reflects updated guidance. A major 2022 review in The Lancet essentially rehabilitated its reputation after the Women's Health Initiative study caused mass panic in the early 2000s.
That WHI study sent so many women running from hormone therapy, and it turns out the interpretation of the data was, to put it diplomatically, complicated.
Very diplomatically put, the current consensus from NAMS, the British Menopause Society, and the International Menopause Society is that for healthy women under 60 or within 10 years of menopause onset, the benefits of MHT generally outweigh the risks. But, and this is important, it requires individual assessment with a qualified physician.
And here's the thing though, not everyone wants or can use hormone therapy. So what does the lifestyle evidence look like?
Genuinely solid in several areas. Resistance training is probably the most evidence-backed, non-pharmacological intervention. Research from the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research shows it directly counters the accelerated bone density loss that begins in perimenopause. We're talking measurable preservation with just 2 to 3 sessions per week.
I started lifting weights 18 months ago, and honestly, I wish someone had handed me a barbell 10 years earlier. I sleep better, my mood is more stable, and I feel stronger. I am a convert.
The sleep benefit you mentioned is backed up too. A 2023 meta-analysis in Maturitas found that regular aerobic and resistance exercise reduced the frequency and severity of hot flashes and improved sleep quality compared to sedentary controls.
Okay, but here's where I want to push back a little, because this is where I get frustrated. Every article I read says exercise helps, sleep more, eat better, and I want to look those articles in the eye and say, I am a working mom. My sleep is interrupted by children and hot flashes. Tell me something useful.
That's fair friction, and I hear it. So let me be specific. The research on sleep for perimenopausal women points to a few targeted strategies, not generic advice. Lowering bedroom temperature, specifically between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit, has documented effects on reducing nighttime hot flash disruption. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBT-I, has been shown in trials by Dr. Fiona Baker at the Sleep Research Society to be more effective than sleep hygiene advice alone.
CBT-I came up on our sleep episode, and I think it genuinely doesn't get enough attention. It's a structured program, not just put your phone down.
Precisely. And on nutrition, because that's the other broad category, the research supports a few specific moves. Increasing phytoestrogens from whole food sources like soy, flaxseed and legumes has modest but real evidence behind it. A review in Nutrients found clinically meaningful reductions in hot flash frequency with consistent soy isoflavone intake.
I want to flag something for the skeptics here, because I know some people have heard conflicting things about soy. The alarm bells about soy and hormones largely come from animal studies using concentrated isoflavone extracts at doses much higher than you'd get from actual food. The human evidence on moderate whole food soy consumption is reassuring.
That's a nuanced and accurate point. The dose and the source matter enormously. Edamame and tofu are not the same as a high-dose isolated supplement.
And I want to name something else that I don't see discussed enough: the mental health piece. Perimenopause is associated with significantly increased rates of anxiety and depression, particularly in women who had PMS or postpartum mood issues. Dr. Hadeen Jaffe at Harvard has done important work connecting estrogen fluctuation to mood disorder vulnerability.
Right, and the framing matters there. These aren't character flaws or stress responses alone. There is a biological substrate, which means they deserve proper clinical attention, not just self-care band-aids.
Exactly. If your mood is shifted significantly, please treat that as a legitimate medical conversation, not something to just push through.
The research also increasingly supports mind-body practices, specifically for stress and symptom burden. A 2021 trial published in Menopause found that mindfulness-based stress reduction, the MBSR protocol developed by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, significantly reduced the bother associated with hot flashes, even when it didn't reduce their frequency. Perception of symptoms changed.
That distinction is fascinating. Not fewer symptoms necessarily, but less suffering from them. That's actually meaningful.
And finally, community and information. The perimenopause conversation is having a cultural moment, partly driven by advocates like Dr. Jen Gunter, author of the Menopause Manifesto, and wider media coverage. That reduction in stigma has real wellness value. Isolation and shame worsen symptom burden.
Y'all, if you are somewhere in this journey, you are not alone. You are not broken, and you are not imagining it. Find your people, whether that's a doctor who takes you seriously, a support group, or just a podcast where two people talk about it like it's a normal human experience.
So, if we're landing on one practical takeaway, and I think we should, it's this: get informed, then get specific. Perimenopause is not a monolith. Your experience is individual. The evidence supports resistance training, targeted sleep strategies, dietary adjustments, mental health attention, and, in conversation with your doctor, possibly MHT. Not all at once, one step.
And that step might just be booking the appointment you've been putting off. That's where I started. One honest conversation with my doctor changed how I understood my own body. Y'all, that is worth so much. You deserve that conversation.
On that note, genuinely good advice and not even slightly overstated.
High praise from David Park. We'll take it. Thank you so much for spending this time with us on the Wellness Rhythm Show. If this episode helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it. We'll see you next time. This show is part of the VoxCrea.AI system. If you want a show like this for your organization, without building it yourself,
Go to VoxCrea.AI and request a sample episode.